This is a Gem Mind Publishing production. Viewer discretion is advised.
Beings from another plane of existence arrived on planet Earth in the 21st century with technology that made mankind look primitive. To humans, it was essentially magic. They conquered the Earth in a matter of days and killed off just about 2/3 of the human population. Restoration of the Earth to its prime living condition was one of the first orders of business for these beings. They reversed all the damage mankind had done over the centuries within a matter of weeks. Even deserts were eliminated and wastelands converted. Almost every square inch of the planet was now fertile ground. Those left alive they referred to as the desirable ones. These were people they believed they could mold and teach. Over the course of a few hundred years, they taught and trained humanity, gave them new laws and guidelines, completely remodeling humans as they saw fit. Chief among the things that they taught was a language known as the God tongue. This new speech allowed man to bend the rules of reality. After their careful instruction, humans began enjoying a standard of living they had never dreamed possible. Wars were a thing of the past. Starvation, crime, sickness, and poverty ceased to exist. Even death was no more. People no longer had to worry or want for anything. They preoccupied their time with learning, developing skills, creating and building, all under the watchful eye of their powerful overlords. After 1,000 years of unimaginable and unmitigated peace, the ills of the former civilization were forgotten, and a small number of people began flirting with the idea of human rulership once more. They had grown discontent with their lot. Too often they looked up and saw these godlike beings occupying all the exalted positions in society, and they wanted that. They wanted to rule themselves once again. Their small murmurings became written petitions for the Earth to be returned to human hands. These petitions all followed the same basic format. First, they would thank the beings for aiding humanity and walking worthily of intelligent life. Then they would state in some form or fashion that humanity was ready to live on its own and no longer needed their instruction. The conclusion? The beings' continued presence would no longer be considered humanitarian aid, but the occupation and domination of a lower life form. After seemingly receiving no response, the separatists began voicing their complaints to the public via peaceful protests and any other means they had to get the word out. Most of the people rejected them, vehemently so. However, this discontentment gradually spread to about 1/3 of the Earth's population. Finally, the beings made their decision on the matter known. Exodus, 31st century. In a private meeting between the leaders of the separatists and the arch messenger of the beings, a punishment was handed down. For their deficiency, the rebels and everyone who longed to follow them would be cut off and banished from the face of the Earth. They were to be cast out to an unknown galaxy, which would serve as a prison. Henceforth, they would suffer the weight of their own rulership. The separatists and their followers were granted 5 years to collect everyone and everything that belonged to them and leave. Convinced of their victory, they gathered their followers. They believed that although they had lost the Earth to these aliens, they had nevertheless won their freedom. And those loyal to the beings would be nothing more than pets for the rest of their existence. The revolutionaries were granted 3-generation class ships known as arcs to transport them to their new home. Then, by the billions, they boarded the ships and left the Milky Way galaxy forever. The rebels immediately established new laws. The first was getting back to the ancient way of marking time, an attempt to deny their old masters and regain some of what they believed they had lost. The new calendar was based on a format previously used on Earth. It started on the first day of the first month in the first year of the Ark era, January 1st, 01 AE. This also symbolized their new beginning. Almost all of mankind's history had been lost, but for this practice they had managed to revive. But all that glitters is not gold. The arcs had been fashioned by the beings themselves. It was as if the architecture of these ships was meant to give the wayward humans pause and fill them with dread after their vaunted claims of having learned enough to be on their own. The technology was so advanced that their best minds could not begin to grasp it. Indeed, the arcs were faceless cubes, as though carved out of one solid block of metal alloy. There were no engines nor any sort of discernible propulsion, and yet it tore open a wormhole the size of a moon and traversed space at speeds faster than light. After arriving at their destination many light years away, these ships began terraforming dead, hostile worlds into suitable homeworlds for its passengers. While the rebels waited inside until the process was over, they were housed in abundance. They wanted for nothing, with overwhelming stores of food and open space, banished in style. Everyone on board was filled with bright hope for the future they had reclaimed, as they waited for the terraforming process to be completed. Then, on 0101-300 AE, there was the first death. Mankind had not seen death in millennia and had forgotten the sting of it, but for the first time in ages, a woman gave birth to a stillborn infant. The news spread like fire. Not only had the child been born dead, but when the physician delivering the baby attempted to resurrect it using the God tongue, he too died where he stood. The truth of what these humans had lost suddenly became painfully obvious. The cost for using the God tongue was life force. Every reality-altering word uttered cost an individual time off their lifespan. When they lived in connection with the beings who were made of perpetual life force, they had access to an inexhaustible supply of this life-giving energy source. Now on their own, an individual only had the limited supply permeating their own body to call upon. The mood on board shifted. A fearful spirit set in as people walked about the halls, aware that they were waiting on the inevitable. Every last one of them would grow old and die. Sure enough, that is what took place. People started noticing gray hairs springing up among the black and crow's feet creeping up on their faces. Yet something worse was to come. Anyone sufficiently versed in the God tongue quickly theorized that they could drain others of their life force to extend their own and retain their youth. Not long after, the first murders began. Panic and hysteria on board the ships reached their crescendo. On Arcs 1 and 2, war broke out. Arc 3. On Arc number 3, something bizarre happened. Led along by an eccentric woman, the inhabitants here became a kind of cult. She managed to convince her followers to empty themselves and become one with her. The idea was seen as beautiful. Using her God tongue, she crafted the words, and in ritualized ceremony, they all poured their consciousness and life force into one vessel. In the process, a godlike being was born. At first, she called herself Nirvana. But in time to come, she would be known to her future followers by other names such as Yagi or the multi-eye bird. Arc 2. On Arc number 2, the Great War raged for years. The people split into factions led by their most skilled God tongue user, who became known as prophets. There was strength in numbers, and so the bigger clan, upon winning, would divide the life forces of the enemy among themselves. The thousands of clans soon boiled down to hundreds, and further still, until there were only 12 great clans left, each having tens of thousands within its ranks. One of the clan leaders, a prophet of great power, managed to convince the others to put an end to the fighting. All the great clan leaders met and agreed to peace, but they saw only one way ahead. The only way for humans to truly have peace would be to abolish the God tongue. Thus, this small group of prophets placed a bind on everyone's minds, forcing the populace to forget about the God tongue. They also placed a shared bind on their own minds, so that their reality warping abilities were sealed away. To retrieve them, they would each need to agree to loosen the bind. With this done, most of the people no longer remembered that they were at war. They even forgot the loved ones they had lost. It seemed to them that they had just boarded the Ark and were still in bliss. Only now, they surmised that death had always been a part of their existence. With the burden of the truth resting squarely on their shoulders, the 12 prophets became known as apostles. Arc 1. On Arc number 1, no such treaty was ever reached, and there was no banding together of brothers. Each man fought for himself in a desperate bid for survival. This war raged on until there was only one. A lone man emerged from this ark onto the world it had terraformed. He was a godlike being, calling himself Gog. With no one but the animals for company after consuming countless human lives, he would be forced to live out his abnormally long existence in solitude.
This has been a Gem Mine publishing production. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Your support means the world to us. If you'd like to go the extra mile in supporting our work, consider checking out our books available on our website or on Amazon. Your purchase directly contributes to the creation of more content. Thank you for being a part of the Gem Mine publishing community. We can't wait to bring you more captivating content in the future.